wherever God leads us. And we will start with some societal challenges. We're living in a post-Christian environment, and that's the first session about, to be sensitive of the times we are living in. So Caleb has his challenges years ago, hundreds of years ago, and we have now our challenges nowadays. So Europe, and we are in Europe, and we welcome people from all over the world, from Pakistan, Rwanda, Ghana, Canada, the States. Here in the, let's say, seedbed of many Christian initiatives. So Europe was once the driving force behind Christendom and the birthplace of significant figures and movements which impacted the world. And today Europe is perceived as inexorably sliding into de-Christianization and secularization. So the message for today is that yet in the midst of this postmodern and post-Christian context, Christians can definitely have an impact in the marketplace, in our environment, and in the church context, outside of the walls of church. Let's have a look on the current situation. So today we frequently hear the notion that in Europe Christianity is out of touch with our times, that the Bible is old-fashioned, irrelevant, or even oppressive. So some people claim that we have a great heritage, but a sobering present. And I've read a quote from Stephen Gustafson. He said, "Christianity began as a personal relationship with Jesus. But when it went to Athens, it became a philosophy. When it went to Rome, it became an organization. And when it went to Europe, it became a culture. And when it came to America, it became a business." So the postmodern and post-Christian situation forces us to come back to the original meaning of Christianity, and that is the personal relationship with Jesus Christ. So that's the focus. And we have all freedom in a secularized situation to bring that message to others. The personal relationship to Jesus Christ. The Bible, first of all, transforms individual human beings, who then in turns transform entire nations, be it science, healthcare, literature, learning, liberty. The biblical worldview touched and transformed entire societies. And all that basically came from Christians. The medieval monasteries were the seedbed of the European universities. And almost all education back then was in fact church education. And again, it was not just Europe which has benefited from all of this. In South Korea, the education of women was mocked and discouraged until Western Christian missionaries came there and brought about radical change. And as a result, today the largest women's university in the world is located in Seoul. So even the education of the blind and deaf was a Christian initiative. The ancient Greeks often used blind boys as galley slaves and blind girls as prostitutes. Jesus, however, restored their sight. Or Darwin's secular survival of the fittest philosophy would never pay for developing an education to humanize the handicapped. Every traditional culture left them to their fate or karma. The Bible alone presents a compassionate God who has come to this earth to save us from our sin and its consequences. So that's the message for our outside world. You are loved, and God can change lives. And in a similar way, also the marketplace was deeply influenced by the Protestant work ethics honoring God with and through the daily work, and we have heard about that yesterday. Work is worship. We are running a Monday campaign because we see the value of the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So we are proclaiming a holistic worldview. God is in every single workplace. Meanwhile, Christianity has experienced a big change over the last 100 years. So the World Missionary Conference 1910 in Edinburgh had this claim of conquering the world. So while in 1910 evangelization meant Christianization, meant culturalization, we meantime were confronted with the 20th century full of other ideologies: nationalism, fascism, communism, socialism, and many more isms. So now the situation has changed dramatically, especially in the Western countries. Christianity has left the public arena, unfortunately. Meanwhile, we try to avoid any Christian hint because the postmodern society didn't like this and has shifted all kind of religious life into the private sector. And that is a demonic paradigm. And we see that in many cases. So Christmas cards became season's greetings. Happy Easter became Happy Spring. And the Christmas market is a winter market. And as an employer, also as a Christian employer, you can't hire Christians because of their faith. So even in some kind of Christian organizations, you must find other arguments. The Christian faith can't be an argument to hire somebody. And don't have a prayer room, because if you have a prayer room for one religious group, you have to have other 10 prayer rooms for others. So the prayer religious belief is outside of everything what is formalized in our workplace. And please avoid, for example, the 10 Commandments or a cross in your entrance hall. I know quite often in the States visiting Christian business people there, and there is a quite different situation. It's more Christianized still in the States. So many company owners do have crosses or 10 Commandments in the entrance hall to make clear what they believe. That's difficult all over Europe. So we are sometimes forced to work against the Christian conscience. Being a dedicated evangelical Christian is becoming very unpopular. It sounds like an extremist or a fundamentalist. So in Iraq, ISIS has banned her from being taught about evolution. And compared to that, in 9 states and DC, creationist voucher schools are doing the same to her with our tax dollars. That's a statement to compare this extremist and other religious groups with evangelical Christians. Or another example, recently a couple of missionaries were killed in Yemen because of their faith and missionary activities. And what was the reaction in the Western media? How on earth can these fundamentalists provoke the Muslims with their intolerant missionary activities? So there is indeed a very unclear and unspecific understanding about the core of mission, of our message to the world. So how to bring the cross back into the public arena? It's now a situation like a restart. I have Eastern German friends who have lived for 40 years without any kind of Christian education. So everything what these friends know about Christianity, they only know it by watching Hollywood movies. So it is a good strategy to make use of media. And like the movies The Passion with Mel Gibson was one of the most successful Christian movies of the last decades. And I know a lot of countries where church planting and official missionary activities are forbidden. And this movie has changed hundreds and thousands of lives. And in fact, it was a big business. So The Passion by Mel Gibson earned $911 million. So a big business, a professional movie, which was used by God to missionize countries around the globe. So we have to be strategic. What can be current tools, products, services in a professional way, which also transports the gospel? It can be a very profitable business like this movie, but has an additional agenda. It transports the gospel to people no church could reach. And also we as business people, we meet people no pastor can reach. So there is a certain call on every businessman's life. We should try to avoid to see our future through the ruins of the past. So we will have Vishal Mangalwadi with this perfect claim of the amputated soul, Western soul, which has caused an ideological vacuum in the public arena. And that creates an increasing need for private initiatives coming from Christians, especially in the workplace. We'll now see a short movie about what work is about in the workplace.
Most of us spend over half our lives at work. Whatever it is you fill the 9 to 5 with, planting crops, building cars, taking care of patients, teaching students, or running a business, work is where most of life happens. For some, work is a drain. They dread Monday mornings, forcing themselves to struggle through because they need the paycheck, while many times feeling trapped and beaten down by their job. Some people love their work. They're good at what they do. It energizes them. It's a place of security, a place to chase dreams, desires, and success. At work, they find fulfillment. We often forget to connect our faith to our work. We don't consider the reasons God may have us at our job. We don't think about the purpose and meaning we could bring to our work. We simply focus on how it makes us feel. But what if we saw our work as an opportunity to worship? As Christians, we are called to serve Christ with our lives. For a few, that means working as a pastor, a youth minister, or a missionary. Others serve the church by teaching children or singing in the choir. But when Sunday is over, most of us return to our jobs outside the church. For us, our mission is in the marketplace. We may not be the kind of missionary who moves to the far regions of Africa, but around the conference table, around the water cooler, or around the cubicle, we have an opportunity to worship the God who created us. He gave us skill. He gave us passion. He gave us work. When we do our jobs with excellence and integrity and diligence, it's an act of worship. We are displaying God's craftsmanship to the non-believing world around us. We are earning the right to be heard. We don't see a divide between Sunday and Monday, between the sacred and the secular. We've been invited into parts of the world that a pastor or traditional missionary will never see. We have conversations with people who would never set foot in a church. Whether we love or dread our work, we choose to turn the focus away from ourselves and toward the mission God has for us. Church is not the only place we worship, and Sundays are not the only days on our calendars that have meaning. Every day on mission for God brings us great joy. Like the heroes before us, we can be modern-day Noahs and Josephs and Peters who are called with a purpose. God has designed us. He created us to work and to worship. For us, work is worship.
Work is worship. Although it sometimes feels like a total cut of the old oak of Christianity in Europe, there are new shoots, especially in the marketplace, which give hope to us in a post-Christian environment and society. So we will see new types of Christian communities, new kinds of companies with a church function. So even in this building, which was a formerly company, we now have started a co-work center upstairs. So if you have time during coffee or lunch, you can visit. We will have an environment for people to stay here during the week working on some projects or initiatives. If we have some startups or people who just need their laptop, they have an infrastructure filled by God's Spirit, making use of our prayer room. So we intentionally pray for these young entrepreneurs, for people who want to use that desk and be here. Fill that house also during the week. So we are not just a Sunday church, want to be a Monday church. So that's our call. And in the basement, maybe you have seen on the ground floor the kindergarten. So for many years, it is highly respected and quite popular in this area. And meanwhile, 70 to 80% of the kids are not coming from Christian families. So we have an incredible influence into families through the kids. So there are opportunities to be church in a larger way than just the gatherings on Sunday. It's more than ever before that the single man in the workplace who makes the difference in his environment. So we are Jesus for others. We are the light to others. We can give orientation, help, support, love, care, and everything what God gives us in our life, we can spread out to others in the workplace. And we already heard about baptism in a backhoe bucket, or if you know the Last Supper from Leonardo da Vinci, then maybe it looks like this in the workplace setting. So let's have Colossians 3:23 in mind. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters. And that belongs to everything what God gives us to work.